Hello BIOL1001, welcome to week 9. We are in a new unit. This is the unit on human identity. It's going to be focusing primarily on human biology and human behavior. It's actually a proxy for a lot of different concepts that are very important broadly to our understanding of life on Earth. So we'll be covering subjects related to cooperation. So we'll be looking at how that influences human societies, but more broadly how that relates to the evolution of societal behavior in general across other organisms. We'll be looking at the evolution of human sexuality, but also how that relates to sexual selection, which is a very powerful driver of evolution in all sorts of animals and plants. And this week, we're actually going to be starting with a look at the evolution, or the origins of human society, or the origins of humans, I should say, in general. So we'll be looking at what is the modern distribution of genetic variation in humans. We'll be looking at how we can relate that back to where humans originated from and how they spread from that original spot, Africa, across the globe. How in turn that migration event influences genetic diversity that we see today. We'll also be looking at the fossil distribution of humans, so relating how different fossils inform us of when certain traits that we consider to be human evolved. So when do we see them appear in other relatives of ours in the fossil record, what we call hominids. So when did bipedalism arrive? When did larger brains arrive? When did the evolution of complex language and society appear in the fossil record? All of these things kind of inform us of when basically all of the factors that make us humans started to come online in the evolutionary record. And it's actually a much more complicated story than just one day there were humans after a long period of there not being humans, okay? So that's the focus of this week's subject, is the evolutionary origins of humans. We'll be looking at this in chapter 20. There's always an essential question set you need to do with your group. And then you'll be starting, for the lab, kind of transitioning into the last main lab project. This is a big project. It's a group and individually oriented project, and it runs the next 5 weeks of the class, okay? So we're going to start off pretty slow here, just to kind of orient you with what we'll be doing in this lab. But it is going to be focused on using this large data set of African wildlife that's been recorded over the last several years in the Serengeti. And we'll be using this data set to look at how patterns of animal populations and animal interactions change over time based on different ecological ideas that we might have, or predictions we might come up with. And that's really where you're going to start this week. So you're going to orient yourself with the data set. You're going to take a look at what the data is, how the data is actually structured. And then you and your group are going to come up with a hypothesis that you might be able to test with that data, okay? So this is very preliminary. It's not, it's more an exercise to familiarize yourself with what the data is than the ultimate hypothesis you might end up testing, okay? So work with your group, try to think of a good hypothesis, and remember what goes into making a good hypothesis. Check your notes on that, but try to come up with something reasonable given your understanding of the data as it is, okay? We're just kind of easing our way into this lab. And then don't forget, as always, there is an exam deadline, November 6th, exam 2, okay? That ends at 11:55 on November 6th. Don't forget to take it, please. It's the second exam of the class. We have 2 more after this. There's 4 exams total in the class. So that's it for now. Have a good week. Of course, if you have any questions, email me.